It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander. Back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew our version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest out to brew the Magic World. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out the links down in the description. I'd really appreciate it. But we're celebrating Innistrad, talking about a lot of Innistrad commanders, and it'd be wrong to talk about Innistrad and not talk about Wilhelt, the Rotcleaver. A 4-mana Dimir zombie warrior that says whenever another zombie we control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, make a 2-2 zombie with Decayed. And the Decayed zombie can't block, and whenever it attacks, you sack at the end of combat. At the beginning of your end step, you can sack a zombie. If we do, draw a card. Wilhelt, on its own, is a very interesting card, right? When our zombies die, we get to make zombies to replace them. And then in our end step, we can sack a zombie to draw a card. Obviously, he cares about the zombies dying. And one of the best ways to pay that off is some sort of aristocrat-style game plan, which is our plan. And we have a bunch of zombies that are going to help us and help drain our opponents faster. And then we'll talk about just a couple of the average combos you're going to see in a Wilhelt deck. They're all here. I think the deck does its job pretty well for the price that we have as the cost for the deck is right normal of what you'd expect out of a Millsy Brews episode. And I still think we get to play everything we'd want to play. But all right, let's talk about our zombies because there's a lot of them in the deck, hence the point. Cleaver Scab came out of this precon. Pay 3 and sack a zombie to create 2 tokens or copy that zombie. Again, remember that when we're talking about sacking things, we're thinking about dying, right? We're thinking about also zombies getting created with Wilhelt. Diagraph Captain buffs our zombies, and whenever another zombie we control dies, target opponent loses a life. It's great to get these aristocrat payoffs on zombies because we're getting 2-for-1s, right? Diagraph Colossus comes in with a counter on it for each zombie in our graveyard, and whenever we cast a zombie, we have to make a tapped zombie token, which isn't bad at all. Eternal Skylord amasses 2 when it comes in, but gives all of our zombie tokens flying, which is very useful, right? Geralt the Fleshright is another way to get into some combos in the deck. Whenever we cast a spell other than our first one each turn, we get to make a 2-2 black zombie rogue creature token. And whenever a zombie comes in, we put a counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. That's a jumbled mess. But the truth is, when we start talking about our Gravecrawler style combos, I think you'll start to understand why Geralt is even better there. We're playing the other most popular commander from Innistrad for zombies, and we'll actually be covering it next week on the channel. That's Gisa and Geralt. Whenever it comes in, we're going to mill 4, and once during each of our turns, we can cast a zombie spell from our graveyard. A great ability, right, to be able to sacrifice our zombies and get them back. Gleaming Overseer amasses 1 when it comes in and gives all of our zombie tokens Hexproof and Menace. Headless Rider says whenever it or another non-token zombie creature we control that dies, we're going to make a 2-2 zombie, a great ability. Hordewing Scab is going to give all of our zombies flying, and whenever one or more zombies we control deal damage to one or more of our opponents, we draw cards equal to the number of opponents dealt damage this way, and if we do, discard that many cards. A good way to just get some cards into our hand, potentially seed our graveyard if that's something we want to do, and find some more key pieces. Lord of the Accursed gives the buff, and then has an option to give all our zombies Menace. Plague Belcher comes in, and its downside is we have to give 2 -1/-1s on a creature we control. But then, whenever another zombie dies, each opponent loses a life. Whenever Undead Augur or another zombie we control dies, we get to draw a card and lose a life. It is a forced draw, so we do have to keep that in mind with Undead Augur. Vengeful Dead, whenever it or another zombie dies, each opponent loses a life. Again, stacking up these aristocrats triggered. Crowded Crypt says whenever a creature we control dies, we get to put a corpse counter on it, and it'll add a black mana for us every turn. And then for 6, we could sack it to make a bunch of zombies equal to the corpse counters, which is an interesting way to get more zombies if we need them for more of the sacrifice effects. Endless Ranks of the Dead is going to get better every turn, making X 2-2 black zombies, where X is the number of zombies we control rounded down. Half the number of zombies we control rounded down. So once we get a couple zombies out, we're going to be making zombies every turn, more zombies to fuel these effects that we want to happen. And then we get into the big enchantments we want to see. Necroduality, whenever another non-token zombie comes in, you make a copy of it. Open the Graves, whenever another non-token creature dies, you make a zombie token. And then probably the big one, I think Necroduality is fantastic, but probably the one people know the most, Rooftop Storm, which just got that beautiful reprint. We can pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for zombie spells you cast. A great piece for a couple of the combos we're going to talk about. Okay, so we're setting up the zombie game plan. Let's start talking about the Aristocrats game plan, right? So if you're not familiar with an Aristocrats deck, the goal is to sacrifice a creature for some sort of value, and in that process, deal damage to your opponents. That's where the Aristocrats piece comes from. So Carrion Feeder can sack a creature to grow itself, get itself bigger. So there's an example of a sacrifice outlet that we can use to sack a creature. Empty the Library is a really interesting one. So we could sacrifice X zombies and reveal cards on the top until we hit that many number of zombie cards and put those onto the battlefield. This is a great way to turn your 2/2 zombies, whether they're decayed or not, into better zombies from our decks, seeding and maybe setting up our combos. Corrupted Conviction can sack a creature to draw 2 cards, and we're playing a couple of these. We're playing Deadly Dispute as well. Again, Wilhelt would then hopefully make us a decayed zombie, right? And then get us a couple card draws. And then we'll get into a couple of the sack outlets that are going to cause combos for us, Alter Dementia and Blasting Station. Alter Dementia, whenever we could sack a creature to have a player mill cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. And then Blasting Station, we can sack a creature to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. And then whenever a creature comes into play, we can untap Blasting Station. We'll talk in a second about these two and our combos, and I think you'll start to understand how they're a little bit more useful for us. But we want to make sure we also have an Aristocrats payoff with our sack outlet to make sure that we're really dealing damage to our opponents over time. Agent of the Iron Throne says whenever an artifact or creature we control is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, everybody loses a life. Great, right, with those tokens that we want to sacrifice. Bastion says whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses one and we gain one. Same thing on Funeral Room on that room card there. So again, 1 each time stacks up over the course of a game, right? But we can get multiple out at once. That's even better. Grave Pact, forcing our opponents to sacrifice creatures whenever our creatures die, is going to help us stay ahead because we're going to be able to replace our zombies a lot faster, hopefully, than they can replace their creatures. Scavenger's Talent may look odd. Whenever one of our creatures we control die, we make a food token on the first one. Level 2 gets even better. Whenever we sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. That's going to help set up, right, that potentially a way to mill our opponents out. And once we get into some of our combos. And then being our end step, we could sacrifice 3 of them on that permanent. If we do, we return a creature card from our graveyard back to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. We would potentially get something back if need be, although the finality counter is a little dangerous, right, because it exiles when it dies. And then it got the reprint. We got to play it. The Meat Hook Massacre. Coming in, giving everything -X/-6 till end of turn. Remember, we can play it for 0, and that's perfectly fine. But what we care about is whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life. So, again, great ability to start dealing with our opponents. But let's get into arguably what everybody plays Wilhelt for, which is the combos that are going to allow you to potentially completely Aristocrat out a game or combo out a game on your turn. The first actually doesn't use a lot of Aristocrats, but it actually is a pretty fun combo with Acererak, the Archlich, and Rooftop Storm. So Rooftop Storm says we could pay 0 for our creatures or zombie creature spells. Acererak says when it comes in, if we haven't completed the Tomb Annihilation, this is a dungeon from Adventure of the Forgotten Realms. If you're not sure what it is, I showed you Lost Mine of Phandelver because that's the one we actually care about over on the right. We get to return it back to its owner's hand and venture into a dungeon. Well, we want to go through Lost Mine of Phandelver. And the reason is because Acerek's going to bring itself back to our hand because we did not complete Tomb Annihilation. And then we can immediately recast it again for 0 with Rooftop Storm, and we're going to do this a number of times. Well, the truth is, this is how the loop's going to go. We're going to start at the cave entrance. You can pick either of these. It doesn't really matter. You can get the treasures if you want some mana to protect yourself, or you can get the goblins. Dark Pool is the one that matters. Everybody loses one and we gain one, and then we draw a card. We're going to just continue doing this all the way through this dungeon multiple times, and this, right, given that it takes our opponents are at 40 life, at maximum we have to do this loop, 160 times, right? Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? We have to go through this 40 times at worst case. At best case, it's only 20 or 25, times having to go through this to get this to go off. But the truth is, this will hurt your opponents and win the game. The other nice part is that if you have any way to pay off these treasures leaving the battlefield, or if you have anything to use the treasures for, you could speed that up, right, or do other things. So, again, need Rooftop Storm and Acererak. Remember, this is the one that we want to go through, but there are other dungeon options, and you can look them up on Scryfall if you have any questions on that. But let's get into the more let's get into the more aristocratic style combos. So on this page, really all you need is Gravecrawler is one of the key ones here because we could cast it back out of our graveyard as long as we control a zombie. So as long as we have any other zombie, we can cast it back out of our graveyard. Remember, Rooftop Storm allows us to cast it back out of our graveyard for free, right? Because we pay 0 for it. And then we have a sack outlet here in Altar of Dimension that's actually hurting our opponents. But the truth is, as long as we have a sack outlet and then and then an Aristocrat's piece, we would be able to do the same thing. It's just here we're shortening the amount of them we need. Now, the nice part about this combo is if we have Wilhelt out, Wilhelt's making us a decayed zombie for every time that Gravecrawler dies, which is actually speeding up the combo with the Altered Dimension. It's actually the exact same. It's, let's say I decided to not have the Rooftop. Let's say I didn't have Rooftop, but I had a artifact like Phyrexian Altar, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, which lets me sacrifice a creature to make a mana. Well, that mana pays for the Gravecrawler, right, back out of my graveyard. Well, then all I need to do is add an Aristocrat's piece so that whenever a creature I control dies, so they lose their lives, right? Now when I sack Gravecrawler to the altar, right, they're losing a life. I play the Gravecrawler back again, sacrifice it again. You could see that loop. And the nice part there is that Wilhelt will speed it up, right, because it's getting you a decayed zombie token every time, allowing you to, right, do this twice as fast. Basically, the good part about Wilhelt being there is that it goes twice as fast. Now, for this combo, we just need a zombie at all. We just need a zombie on the battlefield. We don't even need Wilhelt to do this combo. Remember that Wilhelt speeds it up. Same thing on the next slide. Gravecrawler again, for its thing. Puppet Factory says that creature tokens lose all abilities and have base power until this 3/3. This is important because now, with Wilhelt out, we can get that zombie every time Gravecrawler dies, and this basically can lead to an extra mana, right? We're netting a zombie every time this happens. Very similar to the last combo, we're just using Phyrexian Altar for mana, but again, add an Aristocrat's payoff to this, and you're building a thing where you're ending the game. The other nice part with Puppet Factory is we don't even necessarily need the Gravecrawler. Actually, you could put Wilhelt here, right? And Wilhelt makes you the zombie, the decayed zombie whenever a zombie dies. Well, they don't have decayed anymore, meaning anytime you sack a zombie to this Phyrexian Altar, you're getting a new zombie that doesn't have decayed. And you could see that the loop doesn't even need Gravecrawler. You just can use Gravecrawler in the purposes of this, right, to do this. The fact is that the nice part is this middle card here in Puppet Factory is great in a lot of other scenarios. These are just one or two of the combos. There are plenty of combo lines you can find in this deck between the sack outlets and the Aristocrat payoffs and many other things. The point here is starting to have you understand that Wilhelt is a key to the deck, and there are other things that are keys to the deck. And as you put these pieces together, you find cool combos for it. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again: no deck's ever complete. Although we did cover Wilhelt a little bit ago, this is our first time covering him in a while, and there's still a lot of things we can learn in testing. Mainly 2 cards. There's 2 cards I really love the look of, but I didn't include them because of their cost, but I think they're really great. The first is Wand of Orcus. This is an equipment that lets the equipped creature, whenever it hits a player in combat, we make that many zombie tokens. I think that's a great ability, especially once we can get our zombies in the air with some of our zombies. But whenever the equipped creature attacks or blocks, all of our zombies gain Death Touch on a turn, which is pretty nice. And the other one is Black Market. It might look odd, because whenever a creature dies, you put a counter on it. At the beginning of your main phase, you get a black mana for each charge counter on it. But the truth is, this could help you fund a Gravecrawler combo, right? Because you can net a bunch of mana, sack Gravecrawler a couple times, bring it back, right? And start getting this black market bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that you may just be able to net a large amount of black mana to just do other things with as well. So it just kind of shows you that there's more pieces that can interact with this combo. But let's get into our playtest. Number 1, keeping a 3-lander with Gisa and Geralf, Gravecrawler, that empty the library, and then a Arcane Signet. So not bad. We have enough lands for Wilhelt. We just need to work our way up to it. Put the Estuary in turn 1. We could run the Gravecrawler out. I'm trying to think if it matters. Turn 2, we play the Signet. Turn 3, we play the Wilhelt. I guess technically we don't have to. We could, make someone think we have Sig, but I probably would here on turn 2 with the Arcane Signet. because then that way, right, on turn 3 here, I could play the Wilhelt. And I could sack this Gravecrawler to make the token and draw a card if I want to. I don't have to, but I could. The other nice thing is I could wait until, Necro Duality is down and end up netting myself a couple Gravecrawlers, right, through the process. There's a lot of ways to look at that. Unmarked Grave is very interesting. You can go get a creature, your non-legendary card of your choice, and put it in your graveyard. But I think, beginning my end step, I would go ahead and just sack Gravecrawler to draw a card, and that's going to make a 2/2 zombie with Decayed, right? We did draw lands, so that's nice. So here on turn 4, we're up to 5 mana. Again, remember, we can play Gravecrawler back out of our graveyard as long as we control a zombie. And that's really nice, right? Because then Wilhelt can sacrifice at every turn for a card, right? We're starting to see these combos. So if I get down Geralf, right? Which is he's my first spell. If I play Gravecrawler back out of my graveyard, Geralf sees that it's not the first spell I cast this turn, so it's going to make a 2/2 zombie rogue. That zombie rogue is going to come in with a counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under their control this turn, which is 0. There hasn't been another zombie that's entered in. But now Gravecrawler comes in, and it gets a counter, right, for having another zombie come in. And now, if we had a way to sacrifice Gravecrawler and do it again, we could. This would be a scenario where, with a Phyrexian Altar, you could actually make a really large number of zombie rogues that are going to get increasingly bigger and bigger and bigger, right, to deal with our opponents. But end step, I would just sack the Gravecrawler again, draw a card, make a Decayed zombie. That actually zombie is going to come in with 2, right, because 2 more zombies came in before it this turn. And now we just keep the process going as we're looking for something else to do. We see Poppet Stitcher, which is the front side of the Poppet factory. So that's not bad. My thought is Necro Duality. Well, is it empty the library? If I go 3 and empty the library, I could sack these 3 and get 3 zombies in this turn. And they're just the first 3 zombies off the deck. Could lead to some fun there. My other thought line was Necro Duality, bring Gravecrawler back. I get a copy of it, and then I could sack the copy of then I could sack the real Gravecrawler at the end of the turn to draw cards. But that would also net me a token from Geralf. I guess there is a world where I also could have just sacrificed one of the tokens instead of Gravecrawler next or last turn, right? There's always that line as well. Liliana's another option to start milling cards, putting things in our graveyard. I think I'm just going to try to empty the library. Sacrifice 3. So we're going to flip until we hit 3 zombie cards, and they're all going to hit the battlefield. All right, so there we go. We get Headless Rider, Death Baron, and Carrion Feeder. So then Geralf's going to say, whenever a zombie enters, put a counter on it for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So it's 2, right? So each of these should just get 2 counters because they each see each other coming in. Where Headless Rider is going to start drawing us or making us some tokens when things die, right? Because one of those zombies we sacrificed didn't have a Decayed, we should get a Decayed zombie from Wilhelt, right? And then that's going to come in with, right, a couple counters on it. Death Baron gives out some Death Touch. Again, move to end step. I really want to draw a card, right? I think I would just sack the Decayed zombie. I won't get one from Wilhelt because it had Decayed. The point is I still draw a card, and then Headless Rider won't go off because it's not a real creature, right? But I mean, again, the point is we still drew there. It was the start of the end step though, so we can't play that land. But all we're looking for now is, well, there's an Aristocrat piece. We have the Poppet Stitcher, and we have a sack outlet. So we just need to flip the Poppet Stitcher over to get access to that, and then we have the Bastion, right? So the Bastion could come down, make a human, get Poppet Stitcher down. I think we just, sack a Baron to the Carrion Feeder, make a decayed zombie, right? I think should we have done that? Should we have done the Puppet Stitcher last turn? I actually realized we should have done that Puppet Stitcher last turn, right? Because then we could have had it this turn and we would have been there. But that just goes to show you what you're going to miss when you're playtesting. And this is why we do playtest. So, I think I probably just cast Gravecrawler back out of the graveyard, sacrifice it, cast it back out of the graveyard again, sacrifice it, just make a couple zombies. And then next turn, right, Puppet Stitcher flips over. Now all of these zombies don't have decayed, sack to Carrion Feeder. It makes me another one, Bastion drains, and there's our combo, right? We kind of, stumbled our way into it. But again, it's good to see your combos work so you know how they work and what signs to look for. Here we are. We've got a Serac, 4 lands, Diagraph Captain, Carrion Feeder. So we've got some interesting pieces. I guess we'll just get the Lockthwain in turn 1. Turn 2, we see Necro Duality, a very interesting enchantment. Remember, whenever zombies come in, we get a copy of them. I could wait on the Carrion Feeder, but I think we just want to keep getting pieces. And, same thing with the Gravecrawler. Do we want to wait? Same thing with the Captain. We could wait and get extra copies of them. But, I think I probably will. I guess I could just do a Serac, right? Get the first thing of Fandelver, which is Scry 1. So I guess I could just run out a Serac here. Go into the first one, which is Scry 1. It is a Bastion. We are darn close. I think all we need is a good sack outlet that makes mana, or some way to net mana. I think we're in good shape. So I like the Bastion. Move to our next turn. Play Wilhelt, right? Gotta get that process started. We don't have any real way to sack and a zombie just yet, so we'd probably wait the turn. Here I'm thinking Duality into Gravecrawler, get the copy of Gravecrawler, and a turn sack it to Wilhelt to draw and get our Decayed Buried Alive is a very interesting card here, being able to put creature cards in our graveyard if we have things like Easton Geralf or other things that can be played back out of our graveyard. It's also a way to find, right, Gravecrawler, right, if we're there in that process. The fun part about Gravecrawler is we can now sack it to the Carrion Feeder and play it back out of our graveyard and keep netting a copy of Gravecrawler every time we do it with the Necro Duality. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Really, all we need is a way to sack Gravecrawler for mana, and I think we're in really good shape. Once we get that Bastion down. Get the Bastion down, get the Soldier. Again, I think we're so close. We just need to find a way to get more mana. I've got 2 black mana this turn, so I could just sack Gravecrawler to Carrion Feeder to give it a counter. That's going to make me a Decayed Zombie, right? Cast it back. For that first black mana, sack it again, cast it back. So that's another counter, another zombie. Right, and I'm actually netting copies of Gravecrawler every time that I could then sack. So we're starting to build this board. Again, I think we're just... because I can sack all these at any time to Carrion Feeder. So we're holding on to 7 damage right now from this Bastion. I think we're in good shape. The question is just, what do we need to get over that last hump? I mean, Diagraph Captain could help, right? Bringing in with Necro Duality, and that's 2 extra damage. That's my thought this turn. Like, let's say here, okay, so I don't have any other pieces. I bring Diagraph Captain in, get the copy. So now whenever a zombie controls... now whenever a zombie I control is dying, everybody's losing 3, right? 2 plus the 1 from Bastion. So my thought is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. I could sack my entire board to the Carrion Feeder. I'm going to net 1, 2, 3 more Decayed Zombies. So that's 9 more damage. And then I have 3 mana left over to play Gravecrawler a couple times plus the copies. And I think we just get there, right, with the Bastion and the Diagraph. So this is where you kind of see that Aristocrat game plan coming into play, and that's what we want to see. Here, keeping a 3-lander with Carrion Feeder, a Phyrexian Altar, Funeral Room, and Necro Duality. I mean, Aristocrat's piece, sack outlet, and that. I mean, all we're missing is a really good piece. Jeez, Meat Hook turn 1. Okay, well, Meat Hook's there. There's another Aristocrat piece. We're golden. We're running on. Well, there's Gravecrawler. So now all we need to do is get Carrion Feeder down, get the Altar down, and get an Aristocrat's payoff down, and we're golden, right? We have exactly everything we need. Do I get the Meat Hook down this turn, or do I just play... think I'll get the meat hook down this turn. Again, it's okay that we don't get any things. Oh, the Bastion's great too. So the question here becomes, what do we do on turn 3? Do we do the Funeral Room, or do we do the Bastion, or do we do the Altar, right? All of them are kind of beneficial to what we want. I would love to get the Necro Duality down, right? Because Great Gravecrawler is going to start making copies of itself. I will get the Altar. Well, let's get the Bastion down, just so we have a creature eventually to sacrifice that Altar if we need to. All right, well, there's the 4th land, so we're 4+1 into the Altar. Wilhelt. I could just Wilhelt and set up something more for next turn, but I'm kind of thinking about just the duality. It feels weird to take the turn off, but the truth is we're going to be able to do a lot of this on the same turn, right? Because the fun part with this combo is we're going to be able to do it without our commander even being out. So we play the Altar, right? That's 3. Play the Gravecrawler, get the copy. What I really like about this is if I sack the Gravecrawler to Phyrexian Altar, no one can remove this Gravecrawler in response. And then that means I can recast it because I'm getting the mana from the Phyrexian Altar. And then people are losing 2 right now. And the nice part is I'm netting a Gravecrawler every time I cast it back out, meaning I could get another Funeral Dome in this room. Now we're doing 3, right? And this speeds this process up as we've just, basically just siphon out our opponents here. But I hope you all enjoyed Wilhelt. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Again, I like this brew for Wilhelt, and the fact that I got it dang near $300 is something I'm really proud of. I mean, it's not hard because all your key pieces, all your key sack outlets, and those are the ones that are costing the real money. The truth is, where you put more money into the deck is the protection and the card draw and the other things that you have, other sack outlets. There's more to be seen in a deck like this. There's more zombies to be used. There's so many ways you can take it. I think one of my favorite cards for this deck is that Geralf. That Geralf makes it so much more of a threat, right? When you start making those zombies bigger and bigger, and you start getting extra zombies, it really takes your Aristocrats game plan and just ramps it up. But let me know what you think of Wilhelt, and I will catch you all in the next one.